Hey everybody, it's Robin Robbins. I'm very excited about this interview I'm about to conduct here with somebody who is very near and dear to me. If you've been a client of mine, if you've been in my universe for any length of time, then you've heard about Dan Kennedy. And Dan Kennedy is my number one marketing mentor. He is the man who's taught me more about marketing than anybody else, and really is the person that I modeled my business after initially. So I'm here to talk about a new book he's got out. It's called The Best of No BS, the Ultimate No Holds Barred Anthology. And just to give you a little background on Dan before we get in, I have him start talking to you guys. Make sure you have a pen ready, by the way. So now's the time to go grab a pen and a piece of paper, because you're definitely going to learn some stuff here. But Dan is a from scratch multimillionaire and serial entrepreneur, having started, bought, built, and sold companies. He's an active investor in startups, such as a now category leading software firm, and he's a strategic advisor, consultant, and business coach to entrepreneurs. I can tell you that he has built more multimillionaires than any other consultant that I know of. He's the author of over 30 business books and editor of several business and financial newsletters, and he has a 40-year track record of guiding entrepreneurs to seven-figure and beyond income and personal wealth. As a speaker, he has 9 years tenure on the #1 seminar tour, appearing with former U.S. presidents, including Ronald Reagan, leading celebrity entrepreneurs, notable business speakers like Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy, Tommy Hopkins. And that is the tour where I actually originally met him, which was, God, I can't even remember. I think it was in 1998. And since then, his speaking career includes over 3,000 compensated presentations, which means he's getting paid to speak from 3 hours to 3 days in duration in the U.S. and abroad. So, Dan, does that kind of summarize you? I feel like that's kind of inadequate.
Yeah, well, it's suitable. I mean, it leaves out my famously lovable personality, and and a few facts here or there, but it does the job.
Yeah. Well, I don't mind your personality. I mean, there's different folks. I mean, for different strokes, I guess. But to me, I've always, found you to be just like your title is, no BS, straightforward. A lot of meat on the bone. I think that's really the thing that I like most about you is kind of like my friend Kevin O'Leary. He's the only one on Shark Tank telling the truth sometimes.
Often,
Yeah.
he's the only one on Shark Tank telling the truth. We know the backstories of all the sharks, and some are more real than others. Let's say that.
100%. 100%. Well, you're the real deal. Like I said, I saw you speak on a Peter Lowe tour in 1998, signed up for magnetic marketing. And at the time I was in sales at an advertising, a marketing firm, which didn't know anything about marketing. And, a little funny story. I got to tell you this. I know you would never remember it, but I had a, you used to have those call-in days where you would open the phone and you just dialed and dialed and dialed until you got through. You got a busy signal. And I thought, oh, I'm never going to get through. And so I was calling and calling and calling. I finally got through, and I was so shocked that you answered the phone. I asked you something stupid, and I was telling you, I'm like, look, I'm working for this marketing firm. They're not doing any kind of the things that you're teaching me, which make complete sense as somebody who's trying to generate sales, because I'm a salesperson, And I'm like, what do I do? And your advice was like, quit and run away. So I did. Here we are. So it was good advice.
Well, good.
Yes. So anyway, all right. So let me just talk about this book. So this is actually chapters that have been selected and excerpted from 12 different no BS books. I was reading it. I was on a flight today, and I was reading it A lot of the books I've already read, so it was like a refresher, but there was still, I maybe there was just things that I hadn't read and I'd forgotten, but I got so much out of it. And this was really chosen best of by the editors of Entrepreneur Magazine. And it really is a book that you use and fold the pages down and highlight and make notes. I mean, I was doing that on the plane. There's 17 checklists throughout with details. I mean, it really is a really meaty book. But so I want to talk to you first about why did you write another book? I mean, you've got what, 30 now. I mean, so why this one?
Well, the reason for the whole series is, in a sense, more interesting. But the answer to why another book is because that's what writers do,
Mm-hmm.
and the publisher asked for one and waved a check at the door. So that's probably the most honest and straightforward answer. The concept did appeal to me. It really was their idea to go through and cherry pick from 12 of the books, selected chapters and portions of chapters, and put them together into 5 sections. Pick the things that they felt were most impactful and timely, useful at the moment. And that is something we had not done before. Every No BS book is a standalone deep dive into one thing:
Mm-hmm.
worthless management of people and profits, marketing to the affluent, etc. So I was up for it, and together I think we produced, a really useful book. The entire series itself, the first book was published in '04, and in the No BS series, and a few, I don't know, precursor incarnations a little bit before that, and the entire thing is the result of me doing what I think most people do. 1975, I got seriously going in business, and I went in search of information to make my stub your own toes learning curve shorter. And I devoured several mountains of business literature and was increasingly revolted. Most of it fit into 3 categories. One big pile of it written by academic pinhead theorists with alphabet soup after their name, but it blatantly obvious they wouldn't last a week running a Dairy Queen.
Mm-hmm.
Other batch of it written by corporatists, the retired or not yet retired CEO's autobiography, keeping all the good stuff in and leaving all the bad stuff out, and really being for big business, not small business. And the two have very little in common, and it's very dangerous in small business to copy big business. And then the last group was by people you are now very familiar with, professional authors, speakers, consultants, coaches, wizards of every sort, who make their living by wizardry. But truth was, a minor bit of investigation revealed that hardly any of them had ever made a living doing anything but being wizards, and had not actually successfully done, let alone repeatedly successfully done, what they were writing about. So I started to take notes. And as I figured things out, as I discovered things, made notes, and it became ever increasingly apparent that my notes about what really works in the real world for real small businesses, including those that want to become big business, was worlds apart from what was in that room full of existent business and success books I had, and that prompted the whole series and really the whole No BS brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, like you said, there's a lot of people who are out there delivering a book report, not a field report, where they're writing about how this other company grew sales and noticing the commonalities of it. And then there's people doing it, that are actually in the trenches. And, even the corporate CEOs, now that I have, people come to my stage and speak, you're getting a very heavily filtered version of what they did, because it's more palatable and inspirational than the real stuff that they did, so.
Well, that's right. That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like you look at someone like Jack Welch. I mean, Jack Welch, was called Neutron Jack because he would, fire the bottom 10% on a regular basis. He ran GE, was a successful CEO. And when he retired, I think he wrote his books really to kind of reposition himself as a good guy. You know what I mean? Like, so, and it's,
well, I think that's accurate and astute.
yeah.
And I think it happens a lot. It's revisionist history.
Yeah, 100%.
And some of it happens just because people forget what they actually did over time. And some of it is quite intentional. It's, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. How do I make myself palatable to what I'm going to do now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, if you get an opportunity get really in the trenches with somebody like that in private. I had that opportunity with Iacocca of the same era and somewhat comparable to Welch. And your conversations with Iacocca don't really line up with the autobiography put out by Iacocca.
100%. Yeah, they want, I think it's just, there's a lot of, and it goes back to, again, what I appreciate what you do in the book and just in general, and all of your work, it's been very practical, truth telling. I mean, that is part of the whole no BS. And, the people, like, I think one of the things you said in the book is, and I have to, like, cause I made a note of it and I got the book here in front of me, I made notes, but it's something to the effect of, you are for the people who want to take the medicine. And I underscored that, I highlighted it. It actually gets to a question I want to ask you about. And that is just that, what it really takes to succeed in business is it's much harder than people realize. And requires a much stiffer spine than most people have. And they're just not willing to do a lot of the things that are necessary to succeed. So, I want to, so like, let me get into one of the questions, because there's a couple things I want to ask you about. Because one of the things, even starting in the opening, because I think that's where it was in your introduction to the book. And, the thing that I got from it, and maybe it's because I'm a long-term fan of yours and student of yours, is that the way you opened the book, how you positioned yourself, was absolutely brilliant. And so can you talk a little bit about how you're positioning? I know it's not BS. I know it's the truth. I know it's really where you are, but I think right now that's a really key thing. Talk about, just if people just bought the book and read your introduction, I think they got $1 million of advice right there if they saw what they were reading. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, then it did its job.
Okay.
And it is a new introduction, so it's not one of the chapters from the previous books.
Right.
And its intent is to do three things. And I think they're really important for everybody to do, pretty much regardless of what business they're in. The one is to achieve clarity with an audience, a clientele, a constituency, about who you are and who you aren't, what you stand for and what you stand against. Very importantly, who you are for, and who you are not going to be in sync with. Who really it's not going to be a productive conversation, discussion, or relationship, because they will be predisposed to fight, find you inappropriate for them. So you might as well stop talking to them, and they might as well go find somebody else. The sooner that's discovered, the better. So it is really about clarity. A guy really like Sam Zell, huge real estate developer. Sam's autobiography, the title of it is "Am I Being Too Subtle?" and because Sam says that, so we all, and I talk about this in several places in the book actually, but specifically in Wealth Attraction, the principles that govern strategies that govern tactics. And most people are very tactical, but therefore random. So Zell says that his number one principle, his number one goal, has been for no one to ever leave a meeting with him and get out in the hall and say to themselves or others who were in the meeting, "Gee, I wonder what he meant by that." And I love that goal. So number one, it's about clarity. Number two, it is about magnetism leading to interest. So the thing specifically about a book is that, on average, industry surveys consistently tell us that 80% plus of the people who buy books never read them. And there's something to be said about all media about that, right? So you think about all the traffic that is driven, let's say, to an online video, but what percentage of the traffic watches it, and what percentage of the traffic watches it till the very end? So there's a sales piece missing often between audience traction and sufficient interest for the audience to actually benefit and for you to actually benefit from having attracted the audience. And so this is designed to do that. It is designed to resonate with the reader who quickly goes through those brief pages enough to have them saying, "Hey, he's talking my language. Hey, he sounds authentic. Hey, he sounds interesting to me. Therefore, I'll dig into this book." And in kind of every communication piece I've ever done, start of a 3-day seminar, the start of my 75-minute $1 million speech, which you saw at the success events, I always have this piece. I'm always trying to bridge from having attracted traffic, having attracted an audience, and gotten their attention. So I've succeeded at magnetism, but now can I convert that into interest? And then the third thing it's designed to do, which ties to really both of these things, is to position, in this case, myself, and secondarily, book and the 12 books that are excerpted in it, as being of profound importance. I don't mean that from an ego standpoint. I mean it from an effectiveness standpoint. There is a marketing principle of profound importance. And the failure to sell that often derails the opportunity to sell anything. So even when it is mundane, ordinary, who would ever care about this product like a pillow? And I may use him as an example, depending on what we get to again in this call. But he has sold 70 million pillows on television.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go back and look at the original commercial, which still runs, although there are now others, even limited to 60 seconds, and having to sell a pillow, he is astute enough to begin with statements of profound importance and to end with statements of profound importance. And now, with that in mind, if you'll go watch the spot, you'll identify it immediately. So that's the third purpose.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and I think it's done brilliantly. I think that, when I read that, and I'm actually going through your course on, consult positioning and whatnot. I've really, one of the things that I know you've said, and I sometimes I don't know, I'm slow, and I got to learn it at my own. You got to kind of, just like kids, they got to do stupid things to learn sometimes. But, I think it's just, there's the longer that I'm at this, the more I am understanding the importance of trying not to be for everyone. And the problem, I think, with social media, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, it's all rigged to make us, as entrepreneurs or as authors, speakers, whoever, right? It's rigged to make us feel like we are less than, or we're failing if we don't have 10 million people watching our video, or all these likes, or all the videos. I mean, when you look at YouTube and it tells you how many people viewed the videos, like, what difference does that make? And
well, it doesn't.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make the video better or worse. It's all rigged to make people want that. And I think what you're saying is you've got to really know who your audience is, and it's smaller than you think. And most people, I think, the mistake of trying to go too broad.
Yeah, I mean, so I've done 36 books with different publishers. The No BS series is at a mid-range house, Entrepreneur, but I've had several books at Simon & Schuster, the biggest publisher in the industry, and I've been at smaller publishers. They're all obsessed with these kinds of raw numbers, right? I had a conversation. I did a book tour, which I don't do now, but I did a physical book tour for Simon & Schuster. And so they paid for it. We were in 10 bookstores doing signings. And the team, each of the first two locations, expressed disappointment to me about the size of the crowd. Of course, I got a business book. I don't have Norm Schwarzkopf, who was on the Success Tour with me. He worked for 2 years on his leadership book, and it was published on the same day on his book Sex came out.
Mm-hmm.
And he lost that war. And so, it's a business book. It's not 50 Shades of Grey. But they were, we're not drawing big crowds. And I said, yeah, but look, everybody's buying 6 copies. Everybody's buying 10 copies, 12 copies, because they're all taking them back for their staff, for their clients, and they're having me autograph books to 8 different people. That doesn't happen at a normal book signing. Everybody lines up and gets one. So what is this about? Crowd, or how many books are we going to sell? Right? I'm delivering big-time book buyers. Normally, you guys just deliver a book buyer multiplied. And I think that mistake, look, if you could get 2 billion people to watch you twerk on TikTok, and as a backhanded, back-ass compliment, you might very well be able to do that. I probably couldn't, but if you get 2 billion people, maybe. But, well, thank you. Um, but if you can get 2 million people to watch you twerk on TikTok, well, more power to you. But for most business people, that's no better than 2 people watching you twerk in your backyard, unless you can prove that you can successfully move a significant percentage of those people off TikTok over onto your own platform, into your own funnels that lead to a significant percentage of those people giving you money, and then a significant percentage of those people being developed into high value customers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to have a hell of a lot to do with who the people are who are watching you twerk.
Mm-hmm.
So the lack of selectivity and the failure of message to market match is always a big problem. The counting of raw numbers is always a big problem. It goes on everywhere. Dumb exhibitors focus on how many total people attended the trade show they exhibited at, and whether the aisle is crowded or not. Smart exhibitors focus on who's in the aisle. On and on and on, right? Financial advisors are famous. I coached a group of $500,000 a year and up income earners. Their business models all include the free evening seminar where they lure the old people in the room by waving a free chicken dinner at the door. And then they do a little dog and pony show, and they try and book appointments. And they all complain about this, first of all. They don't like it. They have disdain for the process. They call the people who come plate lickers.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all complaining about this to me at our first meeting. And I said, well, why do you do it then? Well, it's because that's the way things are done in our business. That's the way things have to be done in our business. That's the way everybody does it in our business. So, well, you just named the best reason of all not to do it that way. So how about we stop feeding them, because that annoys you. We get them in the room for the right reason, like they're hungry for the knowledge you are going to give them instead of the free chicken. And let's not focus on raw numbers, how many are in the room, but let's focus on average investable assets of the people who are in the room. And over a period of a few months, on average, we doubled the average investable assets per person in the room. And we shrunk the body count in the room by about 25%. Now, that's a win-win. And about half of them got it, and half of them could never get it. They just cried and whined because they had smaller crowds. Well, this has just moved to social media, and then to your point, for its own purposes. Social media tries to make you focus on this even more because they make it a competition for self-esteem and success, openly visible, only based on raw numbers. And if you don't get raw numbers out of your way, particularly, by the way, now, because this becomes a much more acute problem in a recession than in a boom.
Mm-hmm.
When money's running uphill, a lot of dumb things can still yield satisfactory income. When money runs downhill and runs away, all the dumb things become fatal. So if people don't get raw numbers out of their way, and I come at this like in 5 different places in this book, by 5 different ways, in the excerpts from trust-based marketing, in the excerpts from wealth attraction, etc. But if people don't get raw numbers out of their way, regardless of the media they are using, social, online, mail, every door direct mail, speaking, doesn't make any difference. They don't get raw numbers out of their way in the way that they make decisions. They are always going to be making some really, really bad money math decisions.
Mhm. Yeah, well, they're focused on the wrong things. So right now in the IT industry, the industry is doing really well. It's a strong industry. A lot of private equity money came in. It's still here. It's starting to dry up a little bit, but you know what I can tell you with inflation for what it's been, and the labor shortage has really hit the engineers, the techs. And so if you're running an IT services company, your income, your profits are tied to a body, a person doing the work. And right now, I think we are in a very tough set of economic circumstances. I think it's going to get worse. And I can tell you and the audience will be listening to this, 83% of the MSPs out there are not profitable. And it's because inflation went up, labor went up. They have not raised their prices. And what they're doing is basically clinging to low value clients doing low money work. And they're afraid to give it up, because they feel like, oh, I can't charge that much, or what if I can't replace them. And that's everything you're talking about in the book, and you've always taught.
Yeah, I mean, so I have an exercise I try to get people to do. So there's a principle that then really governs a lot of my strategic advice and then a lot of my tactical advice. It's kind of a golden thread running through the whole book. And it goes back, I first heard it when I was 14, listening to Earl Nightingale on records, which if people don't know what they are, they can Google it. It predated 8-track tapes and cassettes. And so to give credit where credit's due, I heard it, and this is harder to do with a record than it is with anything else, but I stopped the record to put the needle back to hear it again, and I did it about 4 times because I was ready to hear this. Earl said, if you set out to do something, so now let's parenthetically say that something is to be one of the firms, the IT businesses that prosper during the recession, unlike the 83% who won't. Earl said, if you set out to do something, you don't know how to do it, and you don't have a model in front of you to follow, like a picture on the front of a box of IKEA furniture that shows you at least what the damn thing should look like when it's done. Then, Earl said, just in that category of endeavor, look around at what everybody else is doing and start by not doing that, because the majority is almost always wrong, particularly about making money.
100%. Yeah.
Okay, he's 1,000% right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been, a governing principle for me. So now how do you translate that into a strategy? So there's a strategic exercise, which I get clients to do or do with them. And I've done as a seminar exercise. It's not, as effective in a workshop as it is one-on-one. But you can do it by yourself, if you will. You go lock yourself in a room. And the exercise is make a list of, in as minute detail as possible, one item at a time, of all your industry norms. And then set out to violate every one of them. Now, to a point you just made, this requires some brass balls. And by the way, prospering in a recession requires bigger, brassier ones.
Mm-hmm.
The number one reason why people don't survive and prosper is not lack of anything but courage. So you make a list of every industry norm, and you figure out how to violate every single one of them. And you will be leaping apart and above and ahead of the crowd like you have never done before in your life. And all sorts of great marketing-driven successes actually have their roots in this. So if you think about the classic unique selling proposition example that I usually use when I teach from the front of the room, although it's becoming too dated, but was the original Domino's pizza, fresh hot pizza delivered in 30 minutes or less, guaranteed. So first of all, there's no promise or mention of good pizza, and that's important.
Mm-hmm. Truth in
and
advertising.
and it was not important. It was not important to that market because he was located next to college campuses where everybody in dorms smoked some funny stuff that made them desperate for carbohydrates and incapable of going and getting them. They didn't care about good. They cared about speed. But he did two things that violated all the industry norms. And he did them, by the way, when he was broke. So people will often say to me, well, that's fine for you, right? But not for me because I'm broke. Well, that's the best time to do this.
Mm-hmm.
He violated industry norms two ways. Number one, he gave a specific time in which he would make a delivery. Nobody in the industry was doing that. And most of the big entities in the industry fell on the floor laughing at him. The second thing he did was guarantee it, which nobody in the industry was doing. And his first burst of meteoric growth came as a result of that. I just saw the August Nielsen ratings. So I'll give you another example. There's a late night, 11 o'clock show that runs opposite Jimmy Fallon's Tonight Show and Jimmy Kimmel on ABC and Stephen Colbert on CBS, the inheritors of late night talk, right? It's on Fox News Network. Mm-hmm. And it's hosted by Greg Gutfeld. The show is called Gutfeld. And it's a sort of the other side of the coin of a Bill Maher show. So it's conservative politics mixed with humor. And all the way back to the old Steve Allen version of Tonight Show, pretty much Gutfeld has a regular rotating cast of about 15 guests. Doesn't really have the celebrity of the week on to promote their movie. And it's low budget compared to the network shows. Fallon, for example, has 25 writers in the writer's room. Gutfeld has 4 plus himself. In August, the Gutfeld show had a bigger audience than all of the other three. He kicked sand in the face of Jimmy Fallon at NBC, Jimmy Kimmel on ABC, and Colbert at CBS. Now, he did that by violating several deeply embedded and believed in industry norms, most significant of which of recent years was be politically liberal. Mm-hmm. And they got their butts kicked. They're getting their butts kicked, and they don't know what to do about it. Now, you can go from business to business to business, and you can find this principle translated into strategy, then translated into tactics. You can find historical examples or contemporary examples. And out of this recession, which you are absolutely right, is deep and deepening and broad and broadening, you're not going to be able to wait it out. This is not a Florida thunderstorm in the middle of the afternoon, and you just run inside the gift shop for an hour and then come back out and go back on the rides. That's not what this is. Baby's going to be with us 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. So creative adaptation is necessary. Out of this recession will be a whole new catalog of these same stories. of this principle applied, creating success, finding opportunity, when the majority put themselves in fetal positions to try and wait until it was over and things returned to normal and starved to death while they were there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to be mindful of your time because I know
we have to be, because I got another one of these after you.
I know you got a hard stop. So before we wrap up, I just want to know from your perspective, what do you think is the most important chapter in this book? Do you have a favorite or one that you would, above all others, that you personally like or feel is important?
Well, so it's situational depending on where an individual is at the moment, right? So you know the old ancient, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So I'll say that when the person is ready, the right chapter will appear. And the table of contents is fairly useful in finding where you might want to start. I would say if you are looking to stiffen your spine, then the excerpts from No BS Ruthless Management of People and Profits and No BS Time Management for Entrepreneurs are probably the most useful. If you are trying to figure out real hardcore marketing issues, then I would go to the excerpts from No BS Direct Marketing for Non-Direct Marketing Businesses and the other books that are there with it, No BS Social Media Marketing and No BS Marketing to Influence and so forth. If you are sort of more in need of mindset orientation, you might look to the No BS Wealth Attraction excerpt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's so many good things. Like I said, I have all these books, but what's really cool about this book for me, it's like it's almost the Reader's Digest of a lifetime of work, and I know I've read these things before, but I'm just even, going through it again, just turning down pages, making notes. Because I think the other thing is you just cannot get enough of the fundamentals. I think so many marketing gurus distract people with, shiny objects and, I don't want to do, I don't want to do the diet and exercise, that old thing, I want the new thing, so, I think it's really important that everybody gets a copy of this book and reads it. I think there's just so much meat on the bone here, so much value here. And so Dan, where should they go to get the book? I mean, is there a particular place you want them to go, or just?
No, it doesn't matter to me, but your easiest path of least resistance these days is Amazon. So you go to Amazon.com. You can go to entrepreneur.com/bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
Barnes and Noble, either online or brick and mortar.
Did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
Okay. So for a second there, I thought I lost you. I was like, oh, okay. So just to repeat that, at Amazon.com, Entrepreneur Bookstore, and you can order it now and it's starting to ship just a couple days. So September 6th, you can have it. You can have it in your hands. The best of No BS, the ultimate no holds barred anthology. Dan, you never disappoint. I'll tell you, everything I've ever gotten from you, everything I've ever invested in, I've always gotten extreme value, not just for the money, but the time put into reading or watching or paying attention. It's always paid off for me. And anybody who's listening to this, I'm telling you, you need to go get this book. It's a phenomenal work of art. It really is. So I appreciate you, Dan. Any final words of wisdom to anybody out there listening?
Christmas is coming, so if you have a bunch of people around you who need a good dose of No BS, buy them by the dozen. Hey, thanks, Robin. I appreciate you having me.
All right. Very good. Guys, buy the copy of the book, get it for your clients, get it for your friends, get it for your vendors. And with that, we'll wrap up. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate you.
Thank you.